Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kingwin 4 Charity Winter 2015 event. We just saw a pretty exciting first semifinals between Firebat and his opponent, which was Naria. Now we're going to see the other Ukrainian in this tournament, Kolento, battle it off against MasSan, who's trying to return to the scene after a brief stint in the Korean military.
Yeah, he's doing amazing right now in the tournament, and we're gonna see if he manages to beat Kolento, because that would be quite a feat. And what I mean by that is Kolento's pretty much acclaimed as one of the top players in the world by a long shot, one of the most consistent and skilled players in general. He's pretty adaptive as a player, and his playstyle is he tends to think things through, so much so that you often don't even understand what he's doing the turn that he does something, and then 2 turns down the line it seems to make sense suddenly. So one of the better players out there, and if MasSan beats him, then that could be a really, really strong return to the Hearthstone scene for him.
You know what I will say about this matchup is that MasSan, even though he isn't rated typically as one of the tip-top players of the Hearthstone scene, he has beaten Kolento before. I believe it was one of the Heroes of Cards tournaments where he actually took that tournament, and in the finals, he took down Kolento 4-0.
4-0 in the finals? Wow, that's a sweep.
Yeah.
So the format is best of 5 here. So I know that MasSan hates hunters. This tournament, all throughout the tournament, he's banned hunters. So he did ban again the hunter from Kolento, and Kolento in return banned the druid from MasSan.
Yeah, these are pretty much the typical bans we see in this tournament. Hunter and Druid typically seen as the top 2 classes in Hearthstone right now. So I'm not surprised about either ban, especially because MasSan is not bringing a Hunter, so Kolento can't ban the Hunter. So I guess he'll be okay with banning Druid instead.
Yeah, but as a result, because Kolento brought both Druid and Hunter, even though his Hunter's banned, it still leaves him with the Druid potential. So he's got Warlock, Druid, and his Mage in the lineup. And we saw MasSan's deck very recently, Mage. He's going to be playing Mage, Paladin, and Warrior, I believe, if his Druid is banned. And he's got a Mech Mage, which is, I don't think, what Kolento's running. I think Kolento's running something a little bit more in the control side, which is a lot, I think, more akin to the type of playstyle that he favors in tournament play.
All right, first match is about to begin. We're going to have Kolento's very awkward Demon Warlock versus MasSan's Warrior. I had a hard time expressing what kind of Warlock that was.
Okay, it's a Demon Hand Zoo. Don't confuse it. Don't confuse it with anything else. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. This is a Demon Hand Zoo. There we go.
Not a bad hand from our Demon Hand Zoo player.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly what you want to see. A Void Caller with a Doom Guard. No Drax's possibility. I mean, in this matchup, it's a little less powerful, I guess, because of the executes, but I mean, you've got to still feel pretty happy about a hand like this.
Yeah, but also in this matchup, you typically can't silence things as the warrior because you usually only run 1 owl or sometimes no owls at all. So when that Void Caller hits the field, it's probably gonna summon a demon along with it.
Yeah, and that's always gonna be a bit problematic. Now, this is wow. Okay, I thought Kolento's play would have been more in the lines of abusive sergeanting that Armorsmith off, but I guess getting the initiative of the Void Caller right away is better, because he might be expecting a Death Bite, which surprisingly MasSan hasn't found a single weapon in his hand yet.
Yeah, that's usually weapons aren't too important in this matchup. You do want to kill down the Zombie Chows and Earthring Farseers, but against... usually the weapons aren't that good against Handlock, but in this particular matchup where there are Void Callers involved, Death Spite is one of the best cards you can have in your hand.
Yeah. And now Kolento's got a pretty nice hand with the Abusive Sergeant trade into the Sludge Belcher, then killing the Slime with a Zombie Chow. That's a pretty strong turn, if he decides to do that.
Yeah, looks good to me. It does give your opponent some armor, but I don't think that's going to be a big factor.
Yeah, I think Kolento's going to try to maximize the value he gets out of the Void Caller. I mean, right now, it's already been pretty good. The Zombie Chow's not going to heal your warrior opponent, because unless they've got health loss, which generally doesn't tend to happen very often if you don't decide to, then the Zombie Chow's just not going to give much healing.
Oh, man.
This is not good.
Yeah, MasSan was hoping that a floating watcher would come out of the Void Caller so that he could Death Spite it down, but fortunately, Kolento got the better demon to spawn out of the Void Caller, out of the two that he had in his hand.
Exactly, and this is... Oh, wow. Okay. So how much damage is on the board for Kolento right now? He's got 8, 9, 10, but then again, the Zombie Shao is mitigating quite a big chunk of that, assuming it does end up dying. There's no Execute in MasSan's hand. The Shield Maidens are going to buy time. But, I mean, we know that Kolento is running double Power Overwhelming in this deck, so it's just a matter of time before he extracts value out of that. The amount of damage he can dish out in one turn in this deck has been pretty impressive so far.
A life Shadow Flame.
Wow.
It's really hard to commentate
incredible.
this game because you're just so not familiar with this deck right now.
Well,
right?
at the moment, I mean, Kolento knows that his opponent doesn't have the Execute because he would have killed the Doom Guard, so he will taunt up smaller minions, much like you would in Zoo to protect the Doom Guard. In a very similar manner, he's going to put his Doom Guard behind the lines and force his opponent to just take about 15 damage from a single Doom Guard, which is going to be so tough for MasSan to deal with unless he finds an answer right off the top. Cruel Taskmaster even would be good at this point.
Yes, now MasSan will have to go behind enemy lines.
Alright, this is a good top deck. Yeah, it really is a really helpful top deck because you can armor up and Shield Slam and even Whirlwind to kill out the spiders. This is starting to look somewhat manageable. If you're MasSan, you've got to feel a bit better about this.
Is the Whirlwind going to come down though?
Yeah, you get Zombie Chow healing. I think it's pretty solid.
Okay. I was
Unfortunately
thinking,
for him,
I was thinking maybe you save it for a later turn once there's more things on the field, maybe.
I think there would be merit to that, but I don't think it's necessary. Because, I mean, you've seen one Haunted Creeper, you might be expecting a second one or Dr. Boom, but you've got no Execute, so what are you playing around, really, at that point? And that Floating Watcher, you know what I think is really interesting, that I didn't really think about the Floating Watcher initially? When you do buff it up right away, it is a 6/6, and until your turn comes around, it is immune to BGH.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. So it's like a 8/8 creature without the drawback of getting BGH'd on your opponent's turn, basically.
Kind of like a Gruul, but cheaper, right? Like, that's how I look at it, and I feel like Kolento's call bringing this creature to the tournament has been, so far, it's been paying off quite a bit. I mean, we saw it become a 12 attack minion at some point in some matchup, and that was just incredible. I think that card is going to get a little bit more play after this tournament if people get to see it.
You know, typically people do play what's being played in tournaments on the ladder. Like, after this tournament, we're going to release the deck list, and we're going to... pretty much everyone's going to be playing this demon deck, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a bit refreshing because that just means there's fewer Hunter players around.
Yeah, everybody... Well, then again, with the Undertaker nerf... I mean, you know what? Kolento's not even running Undertaker, so this is not... His deck list is just going to be stronger, if anything. Because it seems to me like one of the weaknesses of the deck might be the inability to snowball out of control early game against a Hunter player. It's got to be a little bit of a weak matchup, and that might be even less of a factor after the nerf. All right, perfect answer here. How do you deal with this? I mean, there's you Shield Maiden for value, I guess.
Value. Shield Maiden, it directly contests the Sylvanas without giving your opponent anything to potentially mind control.
But then again, Power Overwhelming on Sylvanas, go face. Get the 5/5. Move along, nothing to see here.
Yeah, not only does that get you the 5/5, but it peels off all your opponent's armor as well.
Exactly. He can't use a Shield Slam afterwards on something else you might want to do. I'm really like... Oh, and that double Nerubian Egg defensive Argus on the following turns.
Yeah, pretty good, I'd say. Power Overwhelming and Sylvanas is not usually a combo that we see lately, or even at all. It was pretty popular in the early stages of beta, but ever since Sylvanas was nerfed to 6 mana, I haven't seen much of it anymore.
I was gonna say, like, in the alpha stages, that was the thing. Like, handlocks with Twilight Drakes that gained +1/+1, like, everything was basically Sylvanas heavy, because she was a 5/5, so she was pretty crazy for 5 mana.
All right, Dr. Boom immediately gonna get BGH this turn.
Yeah, and do you drop Nerubian Eggs first to try to get Boombots to activate?
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, you might even just Shadow Flame. the BGH. You attack the 3/3 into the Dr. Boom, and then you Shadow Flame your BGH, and your 5/5 and the Nubian Egg stay up. Okay, he's gonna opt for something else, obviously. Oh, wait. Is that even better?
Power Overwhelming? No, I think you definitely want to use the BGH here.
That Brawl protection from the Nubian Eggs is actually really scary for MasSan. There's really nothing here he can get that's going to make him happy.
Oh, Owl is not bad, not terrible.
I mean, I can't quite say it's good though. It's all right, but I mean, this is horrendous.
If he uses the Owl here, he won't be able to Owl the Sneasel Shredder, and Sneasel Shredder is like the prime target in the Warlock deck to silence.
Yeah, in the Demon Hand Zoo deck, that's considering there's no. Wait, there are Twilight Drakes.
Oh, you're right. Twilight Drakes. I mean, I think you. I don't even know. There's just too many targets for you to silence.
It's like, Monk, what do you think we should do against this deck? And Monk is like, I have no idea. There's literally no game plan for me to play around with. I think this is the perfect example of a mid-range deck. I can't think of a single better example of a mid-range deck. Because it combines so many aspects of the game in the same deck that I can't really think of a specific game plan I'd have to have in mind to go forward.
Yeah, and there's just so much synergies between all the cards in this deck. All the demons, the Power Overwhelmings, the Nubian Eggs, all the buffers like Abusive Sergeant, Dark Iron Dwarf, Power Overwhelming.
So what if we called it Synergy Lock?
Are you trying to coin that term right now?
But I'm trying to figure out a name for this because I'm probably going to be seeing a lot of it around, and because I can't call it Demon Hand Zoo because that's just not a thing. Because it's obviously not Handlock. I mean, it runs Twilight Drakes, but it's not Handlock. It's not Zoo because it doesn't aim to overwhelm you with small stuff and try to protect and get high value out of them. So
yeah, and it's not purely a demon lock, even though there are demons in this deck.
Doesn't even run Mal'Ganis, you know, it's which we usually would see in Demon Lock as a standard, you know, default card. So, all right, Definitive Arga is going to come down, put a wall between the Shield Maiden, the mini bot, and everything else, and the heal bot. No armor for MasSan, so Shield Slam again, a dead card. Wow, and you can't kill that Void Caller because you're digging yourself a grave.
Do you just pass here? That seems so strange.
Yeah, but I think he might just be forced to. I mean, he's hoping his opponent will overextend with Jiraxis, but that would be such a silly mistake to make. Kolento would never do something like this, I don't think.
Yeah, Kolento is also, like, he's very good at using Jiraxis, more so than other players. Like, I've seen, for example, he saw his opponent had, like, 5 or 6 cards in his hand, and he just basically used Jiraxis, didn't attack with the Jiraxis weapon. So if his opponent used Harrison Jones, he would overdraw by, like, 3 cards.
So it's kind of a deterrent. Yeah, and I think that is a good game between Power Overwhelming and the free Doomguard and the Dark Bomb here. That is definitely... He doesn't even need that. Whatever.
Yeah, just...
he's got
Doomguard
overkill.
He overkilled by so much there.
How do you overkill a Control Warrior as a Demon Hand Zoo? I don't understand.
No, you mentioned that this deck is a mid-range deck, and Warrior typically struggles against mid-range decks, right? They have like
probably a really good example with Druid as well. You're right.
Yeah, they have a lot of good answers to aggro things, such as the War Axe, the Whirlwinds, Cruel Taskmaster. They have a lot of good answers for the control aspects of decks, such as the Execute and Shield Slams, and even sometimes Brawls. But the mid-range deck, the mid-range creatures are typically what Warrior struggles with.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, now that you mention it, it just seems to make a lot of sense that it would struggle with this Warrior deck. The thing is, Warrior has been historically, I guess, so strong against, you know, some of the more, I guess, how's Handlock faring against Control Warrior nowadays? Because it used to be a really good matchup for the Handlock player in many ways, that the Warrior didn't have the early answers. But it feels like with Crush, like I'm going to say Crush here because it's a card that, since the metagame has slowed down quite a bit, Warrior have been implementing it, and you know the Handlock matchup against other decks has also deteriorated a bit. So I feel like Control Warrior wasn't a really good spot against Warlock in general as a result of those changes in the meta. So this
Well,
is really a fresh change.
well, we won't get to see any more Warrior this game, but we're gonna see a lot of Paladin, I guess.
Paladin against
Paladin-
this deck.
Yeah. We saw in the opening round of this tournament, Savitz actually beat Kolento with a Paladin deck. He beat this Warlock deck with a Paladin deck, so I think this
Yeah.
is definitely going to be the best choice. Paladin, it's a deck that does have answers to all the weird kind of mid-range creatures that Warlock has. It has especially a quality Consecrate, which can clear any type of board. Like we saw on the last board that Warrior was dealing with. If that board was against the Paladin would be like, okay, I'll just Equality Consecrate and
Yeah, and I'll be done with
Whatever.
it. Yeah.
exactly.
And it's kind of a weird situation right now because, like, I just saw Kolento get the Mortal Coil off the top, and to be honest with you, if you'd asked me a second ago, is there a Mortal Coil in this deck, I would have told you no.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen that Mortal Coil in any of the games.
I mean, it's one of those cards where I'm like, where do you find the room? And apparently it fits.
This is pretty awkward.
You still have to do it. You gotta do what you gotta do. And there's a Twilight Drake coming out, though. I mean, do you play... I guess he does. He doesn't have any demons, so why play the Void Caller? I like the fact that he's got 2 4-drops that can be just, you know, played and forgotten about. They both require silencing in order to negate. And that gives him a backup plan in case one of them doesn't go well.
Yeah, there's just so many silence targets in this deck that you're kind of overwhelmed sometimes. You want to silence the Twilight Drakes, the Sneeds, the Rubian Eggs, and the Void Callers, and you just can't do that all. Like, are you going to fit like 10 silences in your deck? Probably not, right?
I mean, I think Druid is the only class that can put that many in with the Keeper of the Grove and whatnot. And now the Void Caller can bring out a Void Caller.
That's not terrible.
Demon Deception.
I was talking to Kolento one time, and we were talking about Handlock and specifically Mortal Coils, and I asked him, what do you think about Mortal Coils and Handlock? He's like, Mortal Coils are like really important just because Twilight Drake is very often your turn 4 play, and your opponent's turn 5 play is more often than not a Sludge Belcher.
Sludge Belcher, yeah.
Yeah, so basically this Mortal Coil allows your Twilight Drake to trade into a Sludge Belcher and kill it cleanly, and I was like, kind of typical Kolento insight. It's like you don't think of that especially, but now that he mentions it, it's such a common situation.
Yeah, I think it's fairly obvious that that's the only reason cutting coils can be a problem. But still, sometimes you'll be cutting 1. It's just one of those, like the 4 attack of the Twilight Drake. Like, you know, there's a huge difference between 5 attack and 4 attack. Like, if you had a 5-mana 5/6 vanilla minion, I wouldn't doubt that it would see play. You know, like if you upscale the Yeti by 1/1, like +1/+1, it would see a lot of play. Just because of the extra, it has more health than a Stranglethorn Tiger, and it's got enough attack to kill a Sludge Belcher.
I think that's one of the reasons the piloted Sky Golem has become more popular than Karen lately, just because it overshoots that 5 attack threshold by a bit. So that piloted Sky Golem can kill things such as the Sludge Belcher, such as the Lothebs, and even Savannah Highmanes.
Yeah.
That Karen cannot.
Possibly deal with in any case. Yeah, definitely. It's happened quite often where you just can't deal with it very effectively. And Kolento here played very nicely. He had an opportunity to trade one of the Void Callers to get either a free Void Caller or a free Doomguard, and instead he opted to play a second Void Caller to guarantee that what would come out of this is a Doomguard. And I think that's going to pay off.
The Armor Smith. MasSan's like, wait, didn't I lose with Warrior already?
Oh, please tell me I don't have to go through this again.
I mean,
All right, this Dark Iron Dwarf, hyper effective.
Dark Iron Dwarf is another way for creatures to trade with Sludge Belchers effectively, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's what Kolento's aiming for. He's got a pretty good array of minions that have 3 attack in this deck.
You can even summon a Doomguard right now.
Yeah, exactly. Trade the 3/3 away and the 3/5. But the question is, do you have to? Because, I mean, what are you going to get off the Doomguard? Kill the Armorsmith?
I think you still want the Doomguard to come out on your own turn rather than your opponent's turn, though, just to utilize that charge.
Yeah, of course.
If it comes down on your opponent's turn, then you basically just have a vanilla 5/7 instead of a 5/7 that can charge your opponent.
So Doomguard does come out, and mean, Kolento's board again, very, very strong. I think Paladin has generally an easier time of dealing with mid-range, but at the moment this is not showing.
Yeah, Kolento once again he got all the threats that he needed. Basically, the Void Callers act as kind of replacements for your Mountain Giants. So he basically got like a Twilight Drake and 2 Void Callers, which is kind of equivalent to a Twilight Drake and 2 Mountain Giants. Except the Void Callers are even more difficult to deal with than the Mountain Giants.
All right, so what are we looking at here? There is no Void Caller value, but a top deck could change that. All right, that doesn't change anything. He's gonna just BGH it off of the Abusive Sergeant. Yep, he does, and that's goodbye Tyrion.
Yeah, it sounds like I thought my deck didn't have any BGH targets. I mean, I better cut all the minions in my deck that have more than 4 attack.
Yeah, and I really like this addition of the Abusive Sergeant, and because I mean, Kolento is running 2 BGHs, and he also has, I think, no BGH targets of his own in the deck. So what he's got is a BGH immune deck that also can force non-BGH targets to become BGH targets. So he's essentially comboing the Abusive Sergeant and the Dark Iron Dwarf in multiple ways with the eggs, for instance, or the Void Caller as a really good play to kill Sledge Belchers. So he's you know, dipping into multiple synergies in the deck just to get that versatility. And I think this is a really, really strong, you know, trademark of this specific Warlock deck. It's so versatile.
Definitely. And also, Noxious, remember when I said, like, if the last game, like the Warrior board, the Warlock board against the Warrior, I was like, if this were a Paladin, the Paladin would be able to easily Equality Consecrate it. Well, we see almost the same exact board from the Warlock player, and Equality Consecrate is not in MasSan's hand, so he can't actually deal with this either.
Yeah, he doesn't have the answers in hand, but I mean, he generally more often than not would have them. But at the moment he doesn't. So how much damage does Kolento? He's got 7, 8, 9, 10. So he's 7 off of lethal. He's got 4 from I think getting a Dark Bomb off of a life tap would be amazing. Another Power Whelming would be amazing. He's got a few outs, I think, for
even a Doom Guard would be pretty amazing. So a lot of outs. If Kolento taps, he has a lot of options to just win the game straight up.
Yeah, I think he's got like 4 to 5 cards left that can just win the game right now.
I think a Silence would also win, just because it would silence Doom Guard. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got like 6 outs off that tap. That was crazy.
I mean, getting a Nerubian Spider off this egg is also a pretty good value for Power Overwhelming.
Yeah, off of a Shadow Flame, I'll take that. Count me in, 4 damage, Shadow Flame, go. Oh, Murloc.
Yep, okay. Unfortunately, Kolento does not run any Hungry Crabs right now.
Anti-Killbot. I mean, this is a mandatory play, I guess. Equality. I mean, this is... Does MasSan even have a way to make this game last?
He'll be back at 11 HP, and he'll be able to clear...
It depends on whether or not he decides to Equality right now. I mean, if he does an Equality, then...
I think he has to Equality. Or
yeah, I think he has to Equality first. I mean, he could silence off his own Murloc just to make sure that the health stays up, but... And he can trade multiple times, but I don't...
Yeah, this doesn't feel good. Equality without a Consecrate?
Yeah, you can't possibly like that. And,
At least he's not dead on board.
Yeah, but there's a leftover 6 damage from Kolento. He's 1 off of lethal, and he's got 6 outs at least that we mentioned, and that is one of them.
That's an out.
Yep, that's an out, and Kolento will take the game. The unusual, unorthodox Warlock deck from Kolento, really doing well in this tournament. I'm actually really happy to see something new. I think this is the first time in months that I can safely say, oh goodness, a new deck.
Well, have you been paying attention to Fatigue Mage? Do you like that deck?
I built something very similar, so I wasn't really surprised by it. But yeah, I guess it's new in a way. I think Mech Mage is new, but it was expected. I didn't expect this Warlock deck out of GVG.
Exactly. It's very reminiscent of what Reels brought to one of the VGVN tournaments. I don't know if you
goes so
remember that.
Far back. Yeah. Goodness, yes.
Yeah, he played it. He basically went 3-0 in the group stages of VGV at #1 with it, and then in the group stages, or rather in the finals against Amaz, he almost reverse swept Amaz with the deck. He went 3-0 with it, but unfortunately he couldn't close out the last game. Yeah, that Reels Warlock, just basically Demon Warlock, really was a huge surprise to everyone.
Yeah, and that's kind of what a lot of people have been trying to keep the archetype alive, but it's never seemed to have the tools necessary to work very effectively. And I think, as I mentioned yesterday, Dark Bomb might have just been it. I think it's just that one extra tool that makes the deck very viable.
All right, we're going to go into our third and potentially final game. MasSan's Mech Mage against Kolento's Warlock. I will leave it at that.
Yeah, let's not try to coin it. Let's ask Kolento how he wants to call it. I'm sure he'll just say, whatever, you call it whatever you want. And he just won't care. That's it.
Nice attempt, Noxious, with your Kolento impression, but I think like Admiral does a much better one.
I've never even heard. I remember Kolento speaking once at BlizzCon, and he just was very, I guess, silent. So I don't really have a good memory of his action.
Good attempt. It was better than anything I could have ever done. So props to you for that.
I don't even know what I said. All right, so there's going to be a mech war portrayed here probably. You can't let that live, I don't think. But then again, you kind of want to develop that Nerubian and that Creeper, right?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think you can let the
yeah, the Shadow Flame's going to work for you.
I mean, Nerubian Egg plus the Abusive Sergeant is just such a powerful combo.
Exactly. I'm feeling like that Abusive Sergeant is so weak. Nerubian Egg development right now would actually allow Kolento to have good like counter aggression follow up against Mech Mage.
So many possibilities.
I mean, you can't possibly expect a silence, but you might expect a Mad Scientist, quote on like / duplicate.
Okay, this is less of an all-in play, I guess. This basically lets you trade into the Mech Warper next turn.
Assuming he lets you,
Sergeant. Yeah. If you just played a Nerubian Egg, there's a chance that Nerubian Egg won't be able to kill the Mech Warper straight up.
Yeah, depending on whether or not you still maintain the board presence needed. So this is really strong board presence from Kolento. And there's no Blast Mage to start, clearing that board a little bit. And the Shadow Flame's already set up against something like a Mech Mage that can be very, very strong. With a single Power Overwhelming, doesn't take much.
Yeah. MasSan is forced to duplicate maybe, or clear the board, I'm not sure. Or, okay, Mad Scientist, fair enough. But yeah. I think this is one of the weaknesses of duplicate. It's basically not a tempo move, it's more of like a value move. And Mech Mage usually wins with tempo plays, so duplicate, I have to once again question MasSan's choice of adding that card to his deck.
I think it's a good play if you've got Paladin Shredders against specific decks. Think, a warrior deck, right? You might be very happy, against warrior to get a duplicate on Paladin Shredder. So I think it improves some matchups, but overall it might lower the effectiveness of most of them. All right, so he's got a Whirling Blaze at least to enable that egg for all that's worth.
Yeah. Actually, I think it'll be worth a lot.
Mm-hmm. BGH falling down as a straight up 4-2. Yeah, actually that Whirling Blades is gonna get value now. You ping
like Whirling Blades plus a ping on the BGH. That's gonna be pretty good.
Yep, very strong play. Going to give him a 4/4 off that egg. Whoa, MasSan, do not. What?
Whoa.
Evil MasSan, evil you.
I guess there's other cards for him to play, but
yeah,
I don't know.
No, he could have just played that and Snow Chuggered.
Yeah, I like your play a lot better.
Oh, goodness. All right, well, Sylvanas is on the board. I mean, Kolento doesn't even mind getting a Nerubian Egg, right? I mean, he can just enable that later on, no problem. Like, whatever he gets off of this.
I don't think you even have to Sylvanas. The Dark Iron Dwarf seems like a pretty good play.
Yeah, with the Dark Bomb combination, it's disgustingly strong. You can just clear the entire board besides Nerubian Egg.
I think you can even consider tapping and then Dark Iron Dwarfing.
But you're not getting the Dark Bomb value afterwards. Which is really, I think, what he wants to capitalize on here. The ability to clear everything but the egg is pretty good.
Okay.
Do you need the card advantage at this point? I mean, you've got board like No Tomorrow against Mech Mage, who probably doesn't have his Flame Strike.
You know what? Fair enough.
Wow. That Norwegian egg just sitting there saying, what to do? What to do?
Well, this is awkward.
Yeah, it really is.
Does MasSan see the Whirling Blades play though?
I mean, he has to see it. Unless he completely, once he got the Ruby Egg, maybe he just dismissed the minion as a dead card.
Like we saw in the other game, MasSan isn't the best with spare parts, right?
Yeah, maybe he needs a bit more Mech Mage practice under his belt.
Mhm.
Spare parts really open up a lot of avenues of play that you sometimes wouldn't think of. I mean, they're not... Oh, he sees it. Okay.
Okay, there we go.
But...
Good on you,
Oh,
MasSan.
yeah, it's so late, though, now. I feel like it's the latest possible Whirling Blades I've ever seen. It was on curve last turn, now it's just a bit awkward. Alright, well, that will give him the potential to get at least a 4-4 out unless he gets silenced, so... Still not the worst.
Just a plain Sylvanas turn, I think.
Yeah. You just steal the powder shredder for the lulz? No? Okay. I thought he was thinking about just pinging the egg, killing it with a 4-4, and then...
No, I think going aggro here is pretty good. Like, if you're able to race a Mech Mage, that means you're usually in a good position. Wow, that's a really good powder
with
shredder drop.
Dr. Boom, I venture to say that's a pretty good powder shredder drop. It hits, it whiffs pretty hard though on that Sylvanas. How much damage does Kolento have for next turn though? That Power of Whelming is going to give him a lot of reach.
You can even power and
oh wow, those knives. Blah. Well, that's lethal then. Good game for Kolento here, just taking another game in a row with his Warlock deck.
Yeah, this kind of Warlock is also somewhat reminiscent of the old handlocks that had the Leroy Faceless combo. It's like it's kind of like a handlock in that you just have such value creatures mid game, but you also have that burst.
Yeah, that's actually right. It's the burst that actually has been phased out since the Leroy nerf. We just don't see it. Some people tried the Arcane Golem combo. I've seen Gara try that out a while back. A lot of people really tried to re-implement it in handlock, but it never quite worked. And I feel Kolento's just stumbled upon a really nice Warlock recipe. As far as the mix of versatility and the ability to play control or to play aggressive, and I really do like the deck that he's got right there.
Now you know what that means? That means our finals is set. It's going to be Firebat versus Kolento, and I almost couldn't ask for a better finals. Like,
yeah, I mean, oh wow.
These two players are pretty much regarded as two of the best players in the world. I think most people, if you ask who's the best player in the world, they'll name like Firebat, Kolento, Strifecrow. Those are probably like the top 3 names people name right now, and we have two of those top 3 players in the finals right now at this moment.
Yeah, that's gonna be absolutely crazy. So we'll be going for a 10-minute break. We'll be right back with the absolute finals. It's going to be a best of 7 with one revival mechanic, I believe, for one of the players who loses a deck. He can choose to reuse a deck of his choice. So 10 minutes. Be right back. Don't go anywhere.